Hey everyone, it's Jack, and Ubuntu 22.10 has been released. 22.10 is an interim release, not an LTS, and the .10s are always my favorite Ubuntu releases. These interim releases, I think, are just always so cool. And so I always get excited when October rolls around and the .10 is about to come out, and this year is no different. I'm excited, but you know, probably 100 people have already reviewed the Ubuntu standard, so I want to go into one of my favorite Ubuntu spins, which is Ubuntu Budgie. I want to see how Budgie is looking. Ubuntu, I think, does an exceptional job with it, and I really haven't seen any other distro personally that does as good a job with Budgie and the theming features and so forth that are offered in it. I can't wait to jump into this. I'm just going to get right down to it. Hop over to the downloads page here, and as you can see, Ubuntu Budgie 22.10, the tab is highlighted by default. You do have the option to go and look at the LTS releases here, the 22.04 and the 22 and the 20.04 for older equipment, or if you just want to stay in LTS. But of course, today I want to go with 22.10 and take a look at this. So I'm going to just hit the direct download link, pop it in, and then I'll be right back. I told you I'd be back. And so here I am. I got the live version loaded in right now. And so I'm going to boot right in and take a look. And if I remember right, it uses the Ubiquity installer, and it just kind of shows up before we get to our live environment. And if that's the case, I'm just going to get right down to it and go into the install, because I just can't wait to get in the live environment. And here's our Budgie logo showing up. Nice spinner as usual with Ubuntu. So we ought to be seeing something here in a second, either a live desktop or the installer. And there's our background coming in. So we're getting somewhere. And of course, it does take about a minute because we got all this information loading in for our live environment. And that is typical for it to take a little bit to get booted in. And so here we got our Ubiquity installers. We got our two choices here: try it, Ubuntu Budgie, or install it. And I'm just going to get right down to installing it. The try option will put you in the live environment so you can sample it before installing. But here I'm going to choose, we have minimal and normal, and so I'm going to do that, minimal or normal, and then install third-party software. I check that box as well because we do want to have our third-party software and codec and drivers for Wi-Fi and all that. So I like to do that, and I'm going to go with erase disk so I can just erase everything on the disk and just toss it all. So here it's just letting me know that I'm going to write changes and destroy all my info, which is good with me. And here's a time zone by default, and Eastern is good for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in a username, like Toadwick, and a password. And then once we get our password in there, I'm just going to hit continue. I'm good with all the defaults, and that's all there is to it. Now we're off and running. So I'm going to let this do its install, and then I'll be right back after it's finished. And there we are, we finished install. I'm back, and that didn't take too long, just probably 5 minutes or so. So I'm just going to hit the restart now. Easy peasy install, and then we should be into our real environment if everything went okay. Okay, now we're rebooting here. So with luck, we're going to see a login screen, and I never really have problems with Ubuntu. There we go. So here we go. I just log in here, and then we should be seeing a desktop, aka Budgie style, and there's our date and everything. Nice. And so I like the conky there right off the bat on the desktop. And then here we got our Budgie Welcome screen and asking to install some required theme snaps. So that's all good with me. I'm just going to authenticate here and jump in. I can see we have our plank panel at the bottom, and then our Budgie bar at the top with a semi-transparent look. I like that. So now it's gone ahead and installed the missing theme snaps. And I'm not 100% sure what that's referring to, but here it's also showing, giving us some options for additional browsers. And by default, we got Firefox installed, but you can also choose from even these proprietary drivers like Opera and Vivaldi, Edge, and so forth. And even Chrome. Of course, I'd probably go with Chromium personally if I wanted a Chrome-based browser, but I do like Firefox, so I'm going to stick with that. Here we have some customization options. We can start with Budgie desktop settings or the control center, and those are also accessible by right-clicking on the desktop. But if we go in here in our desktop settings, you can see our first option is style, and we have our widgets and styling icons and so forth. And that Puxillo Dark is the default there. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But anyways, here we have under our desktops, you can adjust your icons so they show up. And then your active mounts, home directory, the trash bin. So you can turn all those on and off just by toggling those switches there. And then, of course, the number of virtual desktops by default is 2. And you can see the little switcher up here on top, this panel icon. If we click one of these, then we can switch over to a new desktop. And if we wanted to add more, all we'd have to do is just up the number. And now you can see I'm on the second desktop, and then the first. So that's how easy it is. And then just up this little box here if you want 4. And now you can see 4 little designations up here on top. So we can move through all those different virtual desktops. And of course, you can just have a gazillion in there if you want. Typically, I just stick with 2 or 4, which is good for me. And then we have our Raven panel, which is over here on the side. If we hit this Raven selector here, it'll open it up. And then we can see our calendar and our audio settings and so forth. So that's always nice to have easy access. Really like the Raven panel. And these are some of the things you can add to it. And by default, everything is here. And I'm just going to scooch out of the way here so I'm not blocking the panel. But now I have our power strip turned on. I just toggled the switch, and now you can see our power strip items down here on the bottom. So if you want to add that too, then you can just toggle that on. By default, it's switched off, so I'll just stick with the default for now. But the Raven panel is something I really like in Budgie. And then here we have our notifications. So you can also see those, easy access right from that tab. And the notifications is really nice. I like how that's laid out there as well. And then we have our Windows setting here. So these are all defaults that I typically stick with, but they give you a lot of options for your Windows settings. And then our top panel, of course, that can actually be moved to the bottom as well if you wanted it there. However, by default, we have our panel items all here. These all correspond in the list here to the items that are up in the top panel. And so here's our showtime, and that's not the channel on cable. That is actually, I believe that's the applet that holds the icons for the open windows there. And so our settings over here, you can adjust your drag position and all that good stuff. And I find the defaults to be really good there. And then here we have our clock settings, and again, makes it really nice and easy. Here we can toggle our seconds, and you can set up a custom format and all that. So really beautiful. And so here we can just really just go through any of these items here that are on the panel up here and adjust settings for anything that applies. And then of course we got our other stuff here like our places, and then we have our notification bell so we can get easy access there, and then our network settings. And then audio settings, easily available right there, as well as in the Raven menu. And we have our power strip. And then, of course, our Raven menu. So if you need more details there on your audio settings, we got them right here. And we can also do it by device as well as apps. So really handy. That's something I really like, is the easy access to that. And then here we can add an applet by hitting the little plus button, and we can choose an applet here in our list. And we have app menu, burger menu, caffeine, all kinds of stuff here. And so let's add something in just for fun. One of my favorite apps, of course, and Budgie has a really great one, is the weather app. So I'm going to just scroll down here, and there it is, Weather Show. I'm going to just grab that and select it and hit add applet. And now you can see it at our list, and by default it put it in the center area. So you can see the little cloud up there, and if I click on that, then I have access to all the settings right here. And we have our city, our dynamic panel icon. So if that's checked, then you can see the temperature next to it. And if you want Fahrenheit, you can just select the box here, and then you have the Fahrenheit, and it's finally warming up a bit. 60 big ones. And then you can also show your wind speed in miles per hour if you wish. And here we have the weather for the day. If we scroll over, then we can move forward into Saturday. So tomorrow it looks like it's going to continue to be cloudy and right around 60. So not much different there. And on into Sunday. So I really like that. It's really a nice looking app. And this is all gray right now because it's cloudy, but when you have some sunshine, then those will be yellow as well. So there is a little bit of color there. And then here you can adjust the transparency. You can see the background if you look up to your left there. And the transparency will take out the little square background. So that's what that is. And if you back it off, you'll have a square backdrop or a rectangular one behind the conky there. So this does show up on the desktop and in the bar at the same time. Cool. And then back to our general. So that's our weather app. Here you can create a new panel if you wish. And then we have our auto start settings. And so we have plank in here by default, so the plank will auto start when we boot in. And I do like the plank setup. That is really kind of a nice touch with the bar up on top and the plank on the bottom. And then here we have our Budgie control center. So if I hit that right from the welcome screen, then we have our control settings, our network, Bluetooth, backgrounds, and it looks like we got a lot of nice backgrounds. Pretty typical with Ubuntu to have lots of nice wallpaper. That's one thing I can always count on in Ubuntu. Cool wallpaper. And actually the default is really nice, but here we have another one, and that actually looks great too. That seems to work really well with the conkeys there. Good contrast with the blue, and the weather app up there also works nice with this color scheme. So I might be sticking with that if I change this. And then of course we have a lot of various landscapes there and so forth. Very cool. I am liking this. Absolutely. And then moving on, we got our notification settings. And again, defaults, I'm liking the defaults there. We have application, multitasking. So if you want to change your multitasking views, you can do that there. Applications, you can turn on and off your notification settings right all in here. Kind of like you would on your iPhone or your smartphone. Really easy and intuitive there, I think. Then our privacy settings, and by default our location services are off. And then you got your file history as well. You can turn that on and off if you don't want your history showing up. So that's nice. And also you got the file history. So these are the settings, and by default they're turned on and so forth. But you can have lots of choices there. And then Thunderbolt is an app that I'm not really familiar with, and it's not installed, so not really relevant there. And then here's our online accounts. So if you have lots of online accounts that you like to deal with, like Google and Microsoft, that's where you can adjust all that. And then our sharing setting. So if you want to have remote access to your computer, you can turn that on here, or share with a server and so forth on the network, and you just toggle on top there, and then you can turn these all on and off. And here's your remote desktop settings. So you can adjust there, and then you can toggle that off if you don't want to mess with it. Then here we have our sound settings. So here you can kind of drill down a little better with your sound settings and kind of tweak it more. You got more options here, and even have an alert sound. Yeah, like the dog bark. That's kind of cool. I'd like to actually activate that with my cat around. He would probably freak out a little. And then we have our power settings over here. So if we hit that, by default we're in our balance settings, which is pretty good. I'm good with that. And then your screen blanking, typically I just maybe set that at never or 15 minutes. And you can also do the same with your suspend. And I have that off. It's off by default, which is where I like it. We have our resolution settings here, refresh rate, and scaling, and even fractional scaling here. So if I hit that toggle switch, then we can do some fractional scaling, which can be handy in some monitor setups, or if you have like really big monitor, it can really work well. And you can set when to blank your screen display. And 5 minutes is a little short, so I'm going to move that up to 15. And then automatic screen lock, that's off by default, which is kind of where I like that. And then here's our mouse and touchpad support. So here, if you're a lefty, you can click the right button there, and then that'll make your major click on the right. And here we can test it. So this is kind of cool. I like this little animation. If you left click once and left click twice, then they both light up. Once, only the outside will light up. So that's cool. And the same for your right button. If you double click it or single click it, you'll get 1 or 2. Now I'm moving my scroller. And so this is kind of showing my scroller, and you can kind of see the little gradient up there kind of showing up when I do that. And now a single click on my primary button again, double click, and they both light up. Scrolling, so everything's working. That's kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool if you could drag the bear there. But it's still pretty nice graphic. I like it. And then we move on to our keyboard settings. And everything here is like pretty good with the defaults. I don't think I would change anything there. Here's where you can adjust your printers. So these are all like your standard stuff that you see in the Budgie settings. Color, regional language settings, accessibility for special features, our users. So if we want to change your password, you can do it there. And you can also turn on automatic login, but you got to come up here first and unlock it. You can actually change your username and your avatar without unlocking it. So you don't need any special privileges for that. And let's just choose something here. Maybe, what works for me? I kind of like the bike. I'm going to go with that, I think. Yes, nice. And then if you want to change other things, then you would just simply hit the unlock up there. But no need to do that. And then here's our default applications, so you can change those right here. So if you want a different default music player or video player, you could change that right there. And then your items will open up in a different player. And same with your calendar and mail and so forth. And then here's our date and time settings. Again, you can go in here and do some additional tweaks. You can set your format to 12 hours if you prefer. And then we have our about, showing Ubuntu 22.10, Budgie 10.6.4, and so forth. So nice. That covers it for the control center. Very nice. And so if we come up here, here's our menu again. And so by default, it's showing it in a grid pattern with icons and lots of stuff showing up. And as you can see down below, there's 4 different sections here. So we can just scroll horizontally through each section. We got stuff like our Budgie extras, makeovers and layouts. That's kind of cool. That's something you don't see in most Budgie releases, but you do see in the Ubuntu. And I really like this. I'm going to click on that, and it kind of gets us into a Budgie Welcome window again. And then you can see this is our overall appearance. So we got the Arc and Mojave, Material, Orcus, Puxillo, White Sur, Koger Budgie. So all these different layouts and formats, really cool. And the ones that are already installed, you see Apply Makeover button there. And then the other ones that say install means that they're not actually on your system yet, but you can click that and it'll download it off the internet. And then you can select the Apply Makeover after that and switch your overall look. So let's try one. I'm going to try this Puxillo one here, or this Mojave one. And just going to download it because I just want to see how long it is to take to download and how complicated, which I don't think it is. And I opened up our file manager here just to kind of have that on standby to see if that changes anything. I don't know if that's going to change the icons and all that as well, but let's find out. Okay, now we have our Apply Makeover button showing up, so that means it finished downloading. I'm just going to click it and see what happens. All right, now we got an overall look, even changed our wallpaper back to the default in the background. So here we still have our plank button, and so now it's got more of a Mojave look. The icons are very Mac-like there, so that's cool. And if I want to really Mac it up, I can just hold the Control key down, right-click, go into Preferences, and then over here on Applets, I can just take this trash bin here and just kind of drag it down and it'll look even more Mac authentic. Except I got to drag it in a spot that it'll stick. Like right there. Oh, it flipped over there. That's fine. But if I want it on the end there, I can just drag it. So now we have our trash bin. Then we have other settings in here as well that you can tweak. And you can use different themes. If you don't want transparent, you can have a matte look and a GTK. And then the default, which has a little bar on the bottom, but it's quite transparent. And I think where we were at was fully transparent, which is down here. And that's probably a little bit more consistent with the Mac look. Can't remember, I haven't been on a Mac in a while. And then, of course, you can adjust your icon sizes, so you can crank that up a little bit more. I think on a Mac, the icons are a bit bigger, so it would probably be somewhere close to that size, give or take. And so now you got the nice smooth animation there and looking really good. So there you can get a pretty nice Mac experience. And so we got lots of cool things to choose from that are just like default presets, and I really love this. Here, let's just hit our Coger real quick. Just kind of see what that looks like. And again, kind of changed everything, gave us a lighter theme. Our panel on top is no longer transparent, so now it's dark. So that was kind of a nice little change there. And that's our white Sur setting. So that kind of gives us another kind of modern look there. And then we have our arc design. And it looks like that one is maybe a light theme. And if I were to scroll down, here's our 11 setting. So I guess that's supposed to be like a little bit like a Windows 11 look. So that looks kind of nice too. That kind of moved the panel down at the bottom and then kind of put the bar in panel mode. Kind of centered everything over here. That's cool. And here we have all our icons, and then here's our menu. And if you look at it, we still have our grid settings here. Very nice. And we can just scroll through all our different apps. And of course you can change the look here, and then you get a little bit more of a traditional menu type setting as well, which is all good. And speaking of all good, I forgot to tell you that I clicked on the desktop layout tab up here. So yes, that's where I'm at. In case you got a little lost there. So what else can we try out here to choose from? Here we have our traditional Budgie, which is cool. Cupertino, the one. That kind of looks cool. That's kind of like an Unity style. Ubuntu-like. So if I apply that, boom, here we go. We have our GNOME bar over here on the top. Maybe that's more like GNOME style. Traditional. But that's cool. So here we have this nice layout on the side. So if you like that kind of look, you're all set here. Have our trash bin at the bottom, and then our panel on top once again. And so our Raven menu now is over on the left side. And then we have our menu again, grid style, and the traditional here, all easy access right from here. And then of course your menu right over on the left hand side, so you got easy access to that as well. Nice. So that's the one, and that could be the one for you. Then here we have our Chrome layout. That's kind of cool. I think I might just install that real quick and just take a look at it. It looks like it's got the full screen menu layout there, kind of like you would have in GNOME or Deepin, something like that. So that's kind of cool there. And so that's downloaded. That didn't take long at all. So I'm going to hit apply. And now we have our bottom panel, and scooching up to get out of the way of the widgets there. And you can see our panel items in the middle, and then our menu over here, and full screen. So yeah, this Google one, Chrome, is kind of cool. So I like that layout there. And we got 3 levels here, horizontally scrolling. And you can see all our installed apps right from here. Very nice. And then of course you can just click on those. I was using my center mouse wheel to scroll through those, but you can simply click on the little dots below too. So very cool. Really love the fact that you can just so easily change these looks in Ubuntu. I really love this setup. And there's Redmond for kind of a traditional Windows look. Kind of gives you a little bit more of a Windows 7 look, I think. And so here's our Redmond look. Now, if you like that traditional look, then that might be a choice you might like here. And again, we have our choice between grid, we got our app menu item, so that's nice. And then of course our Ubuntu Budgie, that was our default layout, and also they have the classic Ubuntu as well. But I think I'm just going to go back to our Ubuntu Budgie setting here, just so we can stay consistent. And so there you have it. And I'm just going to scooch down again here, since we got the panel back on top. And wow, it looks like my plank just kind of went out of whack there. So I just reapplied the Ubuntu Budgie setting again, and then that kind of straightened it out. So that was probably me. And there we go. So really love that. I just think the desktop layouts are just such a great feature there. And the theming, I think the Ubuntu team did a wonderful job there. And of course here we have all our different apps, our disks, Firefox by installed, our files, which is GNOME files, I believe. And then here's our radio app. So nice, that's a great radio app there installed by default, and they have all these nice presets to choose from. Very cool. Then back in the menu, let's see what else we got. And here we have LibreOffice installed, Lollipop Player, Mahjong, Menu Editor. So these are all kind of in alphabetical order here. Onboard settings, Plank preferences, Previews control, Sudoku, and then our Software Center, of course, System Monitor, Tilix, which is our console. And in our System Monitor here, we have a nice layout here. We can see our processes, resources, and so forth. And then our file systems, and you can see that we're running ext4. And then here's our kind of about page here showing Ubuntu 22.10, kernel 5.19-021. Got the newest kernel, because after all it is the, well, not the newest, but a very new kernel because of the interim release there. Excellent. So there we are with Budgie. Wow. My thoughts on this are outstanding. If I was going to put it all in one word, this is why I like Ubuntu's version of Budgie the best. And at the beginning of the video, I was saying that Budgie is one of my favorite desktops on Ubuntu. I can easily say after looking at 22.10, it still is. The diversity we have with all the different layouts, I think that's probably one of my favorite features with the Budgie on Ubuntu, is the fact that you can change all the desktop layouts and have the theming all selectable right there in that utility that the Ubuntu team, I'm assuming, developed. And so that is so nice. I'd love to be able to see that on some other distros like on Arch and so forth, or if it was integrated into the Budgie desktop itself by the Budgie people. Of course, if you know your way around Linux, you can easily just kind of set all that stuff up yourself. But to be able to just kind of select through different themes, like going to an 11 theme, to a Redmond, to traditional, to classic, and all these other different styles that are available, I really like the fact that you can do that. And again, that's probably one of my favorite features, but this looks so polished and beautiful. And you got the 22.10 with the new kernel, and of course using snaps and flat packs and so forth. You have access to the latest software, so that's really cool. And personally, I do like the snaps. I think they're fine. I don't really have any issues at all. I know a lot of people out there are really kind of down on the snaps, and I don't fully understand that, because I think they work just great. All I can think of is there's some kind of political reason behind it. Maybe they're anti-Canonical, I don't know. However, whatever the case is, for me, snaps are just fine. And even the stuff out of the Ubuntu repos aren't really that far behind. So if you're looking for something new, a change of desktop environment, maybe you're using something else like XFCE or KDE and you just want a change of scenery, Budgie might be a great choice for you. And it's also, I think, in my opinion, a great choice for even new users. Somebody coming over from Mac can style their Budgie outfit the way it is on the default with the Plank panel down there, and it makes a Mac user comfortable. And Windows users can, of course, use the Redmond style if they want to stay with a traditional Windows look, or the 11 style if they like the Windows 11 stuff, and they can have the pleasure of a Windows 11 type environment without the TPM requirements. Plus a little more stability. And with that, I think that covers everything. I think Ubuntu Budgie is probably my favorite Budgie overall. Ubuntu really does it right. In my experience so far, I haven't really come across any other distro that offers the nice features as Ubuntu does. And of course, you got the gorgeous background there with the wallpaper and so forth. So with that, I think it's pretty much a perfect distro, coming from a guy that doesn't use it for years at a time. But I think it's probably about as close as you could get, especially with the Budgie environment. And I do like Budgie anyways. It's absolutely one of my favorite desktops. It's right up there with KDE and XFCE in my book. And so Budgie is something you can't go wrong with if you like to kind of get a change of scenery every once in a while. And it really is just a beautiful distro in my opinion. So there you have it. And I hope this review was helpful. And if it was, as usual, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And if you want to hit that thumbs up twice, go ahead and, well, don't hit it twice because it might turn back off. Anyway, also don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.